Well, welcome, Debbie Bellenger, to the Wellness Law Podcast. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for
And,
having me.
I'm just thrilled to have you. You're such an energetic person and you have so much to offer the wellness community. And so I'm excited for you to share your knowledge and perspective with the Wellness Law Podcast listeners. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Debbie. She is the CEO and founder of the Wellness Academy, as well as a master class for fit pros or fitness professionals. She is an educator. She provides advisory services to entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and fitness club owners. And she's now living in South Carolina. So welcome, Debbie. And if you want to talk a little bit more about your background before we dive into the legal questions that I have for you, that would be awesome.
Yeah, happy to, Barbara. So I am thrilled to be here and to have met you and have you in my world now. So that's thanks to Terry.
Thank you, Terry.
Thank you, Terry. I think it's really important to have the right people in your world. So a little bit around me, especially now for me. So my background, I basically grew up through the fitness industry, and you know how that goes. University fitness coordinator for a club, and then you're the fitness manager, and then you're the fitness director. And I feel like my career grew up when I joined a hospital system way back when, in '99. I was the first director of wellness for a hospital system in South Carolina. And I do truly believe that at that point, my career, although I still was heavily involved in fitness, presenting, master trainer, teaching Group X, all of those things, being aligned with the healthcare system and having a fitness center under my direction, I kind of learned to develop it into a wellness center. And that was a very good learning. It was like my growing up in the industry was morphing from fitness skills to wellness skills to programming skills. And then I was blessed to work for a second hospital system in North Carolina. And again, my exposure was to audiences that really needed health and wellness. And as much as I loved CrossFit and programming for those that are highly motivated, my new orientation in that role was really to accommodate patients, community members, and our own employees who had challenges. So cardiac event, bariatric surgery, diabetes, hypertension, low back pain, women's wellness issues. And over time, I learned to create wellness programs for all of those populations, still doing fitness, but doing population health as well. And so as I went along that journey, the wellness center that I had became a medical wellness center and fully integrated into our EMR system. So the main hospital with 44 practices, if you went to your doctor in one of our practices, they could do a referral right into my fitness center for Barbara for our weight loss program or for the smoking cessation. So I learned about the continuum of care as well, right? So I've had a blessed career. I did take a huge job in South Florida, Senior Vice President of Healthy Living for 9Ys, and then COVID happened. And so having you in my world at this point, in January of this year, I decided that I wanted to be a solopreneur. And I've always had a side hustle, presenting, teaching, speaking, weekend workshops. In January of this year, I went all in on me. So having you as a resource, I know you're in my universe as I grow my business. It's good to know you're there, that I can ask questions of, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what my law firm does, is help a lot of solopreneurs who are wanting to get into the health and wellness space. A lot of them from a coaching angle, some of them from more licensed profession angle. And yes, so it's really great to be part of your team, Debbie. I'm interested in hearing a little bit of your experience working as a wellness professional in a healthcare organization. Did you find from a law perspective, when you're working in healthcare, conventional medicine, that is a highly regulated environment. HIPAA, the privacy and security rules apply to those organizations, but also a lot of billing, when you're billing insurance for, I assume that a lot of the services you were providing as a wellness center were covered by insurance or were billed to insurance. Do you know if that is the case?
Yeah, so in actuality, the only service that we billed insurance for was nutrition appointments. So that was the only service that we had that had an ICD-10 code that was a reimbursable event. And that's sad. I mean, for all the good work that we provide to all those populations, folks wishing to lose weight and lower hypertension and reverse diabetes and all of these things, the only thing that we could bill for, Barbara, was the nutrition appointments. Now, our diabetes center clearly was accredited and billed for all of their appointments for their patients, right? But in our medical wellness center, that's all that was billable. And that pretty much remains consistent throughout the industry. I know some people are trying to color outside of the lines and push the boundaries by trying to bill or submitting a bill, dropping a bill. We never did that, so to your point, working in healthcare, yes, it's highly litigious. Yes, it's very risk averse. I will say to you that having worked in the fitness industry, being a club director, and then moving into healthcare, I became a lot more aware of crossing T's, dotting I's, and all the things that had any compliance around them, legal issue, waiver forms. I learned a lot. And I did lean on my legal team and my compliance team. And it was just so nice to know they were there. And they would bring things to my attention, like EEOC updates, and say, Debbie, here's something we need to sit in on this webinar. We'll listen in as the lawyers. You listen in as the wellness director. And then we'll sit and decide what's appropriate for us to put in place based on changes in regulation or recommendations. And we always leaned in, better safe than sorry, right? Like you said, it's highly litigious. So I learned a lot. I liked that part of my career because I had learned and was exposed to many things that I didn't really know about so much. I knew about all of our patients. We risk stratified using the American College of Sports Medicine risk form. So I knew about that. But then there are some other things, like you said, like HIPAA and other elements that you have to be acutely aware of.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I mean, they have accrediting bodies, for healthcare organizations, the Joint Commission, or if there's a health plan involved, the National Commission of Quality Assurance, and then also state laws that license facilities, and the federal laws when you're dealing with Medicare and Medicaid patients who might be using the wellness center. I'm curious, you said that the only service that you billed for to insurance was your nutrition counseling, did you say?
Yes.
Were you using, as part of your nutrition counseling, registered dietitians, or who was delivering this nutritional counseling services in your medical wellness center?
We only used registered dietitians.
Okay.
Only, yeah.
And
that was the standard.
And if you had used someone else, like a coach, for example, who shouldn't be by definition giving you nutritional counseling, but if you had, probably would not have been billing insurance at that point then. Right. So, okay. One thing that I wanted to point out about the medical wellness center and the nutrition counseling is that it's really important to make sure that you understand if you are servicing people who are on medications and getting, referrals from their doctor for specific treatment plans, that, you are following state laws as far as who is able to do those kinds of services. So, and that's another advantage, I guess, of working in a healthcare organization is they have to be up on those kinds of laws. So would you say that working in that environment was a little bit more stressful, or a different kind of stress than being a solopreneur in the wellness field?
Oh, that's a great question. It was stressful at times. I worried about making a misstep. You start to realize that there are extensive regulations and rules, and that was one of the things I'd lose sleep over as the director of the Medical Wellness Center and our employee wellness program, and all the companies who purchased us to be the wellness provider to oversee their corporate wellness programs, was something I didn't know, right? So that created a little bit of stress, but I always knew I could go to legal and or compliance and say, what do you think about this? We're selling our services to local employers. What do you think I should have in place? So that learning was stressful at times, but I had a great support system. I could not have done what I did without them. And now, honestly, Barbara, I'm so thankful I had that experience as a solopreneur, because I won't color outside of the lines.
Mm-hmm.
I have complete and utmost respect. I had 2 dietitians on my team and a nurse who were in the Medical Wellness Center. And at the start of my 9 years with my dietitians, I hired one, and then I had to hire a second to help with all the programming stuff we did. And I always remember thinking, gosh, they ask a lot of questions. These dietitians, it's just like, what, another question? And then I started to gain an appreciation of, they are licensed.
Mm-hmm.
They are highly regulated. They have extensive rules around attaining their licensure. So of course, they have a lot of questions because they want to make sure that they're not doing anything that would breach their license, right? So for me now, as a solopreneur, the fact that I worked in that environment is incredible, because I have the sense to ask questions when I'm unsure, and I'm comfortable finding an expert like Barbara to say, Barbara, I'm about to partner with this group. What do I need in place? Mm-hmm. Like that kind of thing, having the understanding that I don't have the skill to do all that I need to do as a solopreneur. I need my accountant. I need my lawyer. I need to make sure that things are in order, right? So that's a great question. And my stress level is down, just knowing that I've got quality folks like you and others that I can go to if I'm unsure.
That's interesting. It's a great perspective, because as someone who works in a huge healthcare organization, that's one of the advantages, is that you do have that infrastructure that's in place, and because they need it. It's actually, they by law need to have a compliance department. They need to be on top of the laws that affect their business. Again, and there are many, because healthcare is highly regulated by federal and state systems. So working in that environment, you probably get a little used to having those resources available to you when you have questions. And then when you go out on your own and work in a less regulated environment, but you don't necessarily know what you don't know, having those resources probably is kind of a comfort to you.
It is. And I think for solopreneurs, entrepreneurs, creating the awareness around quality resources in our industry, I'll share with you, I know times that I have sought liability insurance for me as an independent fitness professional. With my side hustle, with all the presenting I would do, I always had my own liability insurance, because the weekend work needed that coverage, right? And now that I am leading a masterclass helping fitness professionals grow their business into different markets, this question comes up, the legality of, do I need insurance, Debbie? Well, what forms do I need in place? Because they don't know. And solopreneur is solopreneur. Like, that's one of the reasons I'm doing the work that I'm doing and thrilled about it, because the audience clearly needs what you and I are providing, both as an educator and bringing awareness to resources. The idea of what is a good choice for liability insurance for an independent, knowing which lawyer to approach that actually knows anything about wellness. Like Barbara, you're a gem, because, you know, I've had some in my group say, well, I just spoke with my family lawyer. I spoke with the group that does the home insurance and thought we would add my fitness business on it because I work from home. And I'm like, how did that turn out? I mean, really? So it's very important that we as an industry rise up and do good work with the right resources. I feel very strongly about that, and not cutting corners and not doing things right. That does not advance our status in our industry, especially now in this age where we need to be working in partnership with so many. The health and fitness industry needs to grow up. And that's one of the things I feel like, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now, sharing my knowledge and coaching independent fitness clubs and solopreneurs, entrepreneurs to know what's out there and how to set up their business well and cross T's, dot I's with everything in order. All that I learned in the healthcare system, honestly, it's like, oh yeah, well, yeah, if we go and provide service, we need an agreement. You know, and I don't know that all folks know this, and over 300,000 fitness professionals lost their jobs with COVID, with 30% of clubs closing in America. You know, a lot of those individuals went into a virtual space to start their own business. They don't know what they don't know, right? So this is important, what we're talking about.
So when you say the health and wellness industry needs to grow up, what I'm hearing you say is, by grow up, you mean it needs an infrastructure, it needs resources, it needs some standards that similar to healthcare. I would never, having been, and still I am a healthcare lawyer as well as a wellness lawyer. I straddle both worlds. And having worked in the healthcare industry as a lawyer, I would never wish upon the wellness industry the amount of regulation that the healthcare industry has to navigate. That is insane. And because it's so highly regulated and there's so much bureaucracy, a lot of people leave that industry because they feel like they no longer can enjoy the practice of healthcare in whatever capacity they've been trained to do it, because of all of that, mess.
That's absolutely true.
Yes. And so I would never wish that on the wellness industry. I would hope that as an industry, again, looking at it from fitness, from health coaching, from nutrition, and just all the individuals who are out there, not really part of the major medical complex, on the outside of it, that they learn what they can, take what they can, the good aspects of the healthcare system, and and leave the other stuff that really is causing a lot of the angst and anxiety in the healthcare system. So we can definitely learn and improve from that model.
I so agree with you. And I follow the Becker's healthcare report. I always did in my career. I still get it in my inbox, and I do read it every morning. And there's a mass exodus of healthcare CEOs right now. It's 21% year over year since January of this year out. Like you said, it's simply too much. And regulations and burnout and unionization, and it's staffing issues with nurses. I mean, it was already exhausting.
Yeah.
And all the things that we're facing as a society right now, it's sad. I mean, it's kind of sad where the healthcare industry is going. So I totally agree with you. And I think when I say grow up, it's the good parts of healthcare. It's embracing standards and guidelines, knowing what the basic rules of what we're doing are, the resources that we need, do we need an agreement when we sell a service? These kinds of things for us as solopreneurs, right? Knowing the right questions to ask, not setting ourselves up because we don't know for risk where, we just didn't know if we didn't have an agreement signed that we could be at risk of losing the agreement if somebody decides, I don't feel like paying you anymore, Debbie, and just those kinds of things, and bumper guards too. So I think it's the good parts of healthcare, standardization and certifications and resourcing the industry at a higher level. That's what when I say grow up, it's embracing those really good things that make you feel solid in your work, that I'm doing the best work with knowledge, education, experience, and legal issues addressed and covered as well as a business owner. And that's why I'm just so delighted to have you in my world and on my team and providing education, because you can tell the few experiences you've had with my group, both the masterclass and Wellness Academy, my participants are leaning in, right, Barbara? And it's like, I have a question, and it's coaching is big in the industry right now. I think there's a lot of things being figured out. So it's an exciting time for us.
Yeah.
It's just an exciting time for us.
Yeah. And in case the listeners didn't catch that. So yeah, I've been a guest speaker on Debbie's Wellness Academy and the masterclass for Fit Pros, talking about legal aspects of what they want to do as solopreneurs in the fitness space. So yeah, it's been a great experience for me. And I'm so happy to see you incorporating that perspective into your masterclass and your Wellness Academy, because believe it or not, I have gone through government sponsored wellness types of education sessions where it's supposed to be comprehensive, like everything you need to know to do, say, workplace wellness. And the law, they had a little bit of a law aspect to it, but it was such a narrow view of what the legal risks were that I was really, really, really disappointed. And I actually went up to the organizers of this, again, federal government sponsored program, and pointed out the omission of a lot of different legal issues that workplace wellness individuals need to understand. And they just kind of brushed me off. And that was very, very disappointing. Which is what prompted me to write my first book, The Rules of Workplace Wellness Programs, because I felt I needed to have a more comprehensive resource out in the world for people who are in the workplace wellness space. But yeah, I'm so glad to see you incorporating these more, what we might think of as dry topics, but they're really, really important, as you've pointed out and learned for yourself in the healthcare world. Future podcasts, we're going to talk more about whether, in the grand scheme of things, is it a good idea to get recognized by state governments, for example, as a wellness professional. Our first podcast was actually with Diane Miller of the Healthcare Freedom Coalition, who's trying to carve out safe harbors for unlicensed people so that they can feel more confident about what are their boundaries, what can they do, and not feel like they're going to be given a cease and desist letter by a state, licensing board. Right. But I know that there are some groups out there who are actively trying to get recognized by a state licensing board for an aspect of wellness. And there are pros and cons to that. So future podcasts will be having those conversations. But do you have any thoughts? I mean, before we wrap things up, do you have any thoughts about who's in the best position to create the standards that you feel the industry needs to grow up? Is it a government? Is it a private organization? Should it be a unified standard across all wellness type professions, or should there be buckets? I mean, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do, Barbara. I think it's a very complex solution. And for that reason, we need to keep it simple. It would be really easy to mess it up and delay our future progress in the industry by 20 to 30 years. And that we don't need right now. What the industry needs, let me back up. What the world needs right now is health and wellness professionals practicing their skills. Obesity is forecasted to be 50% of Americans by 2030. That's a CDC forecasted statistic. By 2030, 50% of Americans will have a BMI greater than 30.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And so I feel, having grown up in the industry as a health and wellness professional, I feel like there's a sense of urgency for us to get out of our own way and get the folks in the industry that health and wellness professionals, not put up extra barriers to have them out in the field delivering health and wellness programs, fitness programs, education, whatever it is. We don't have time for that. And the disconnect between fitness, wellness, and healthcare, oh, you and I could talk 3 hours on that. You know, we'd have to bring Michael in, and Mike Stack is a really good friend of mine. I know you've spoken with him. He runs a medical wellness center in Ohio, and he is working in the policy advocacy space in that state in Michigan, and he's getting some good traction. I feel like it needs, because of the urgency around, we don't have time to wait for the universe to get unhealthier, and we need the folks that are interested and appropriately trained the way we know it right now, as we develop more of a sophistication of standards, to be practicing. So I would hate to see it regulated by the government. I don't think that's the solution. I've lived all over America and in Europe, and different state elements. I mean, we need a national group that wants to embrace this and create standards that are the same across state by state by state. There's no differential. And honestly, if we'd been in that place before the pandemic, we might have been able to fly the flag and say we are a necessary, essential service, and could have avoided the travesty that happened with shutdowns because we were deemed non-essential. And for me, having worked in medical wellness, some centers managed to stay in the medical wellness space, managed to stay open at a certain degree, but we don't want to do that again. So I think my vision would be a group of very committed individuals that nationwide, with one person per state that is really committed, doesn't have 15 other jobs, it's too busy, and it's just a thing to go on a resume. It's all in. We need to bring this industry along and look at standards. I know for a fact the fitness industry was trying to license personal trainers Group X, right? That conversation's been swirling for years. And where has that taken us? Nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. So I think there's opportunity for growth. I'm hopeful that we do, if it's not a national coalition or national advisory group, something like that with the right expertise, like a Barbara and others that could come together, get into a cadence of regular meetings, identify the gaps, and look at the opportunities, prioritize a roadmap, and just effectively start working on that. But mandating licensing, I think would, and it's one state is this and one state is that, it could hurt the industry, I believe. I think it could set us back some.
Well, that's certainly one of the more frustrating parts about, for licensed individuals and health coaches, for example, who are not licensed, is keeping track of the different state requirements and, the concern about, if I see clients or patients in this state and I don't have a license, or I'm not aware of what's going on in that state as far as their priorities for disciplining people like me doing what I do, whatever it is in the wellness space, that creates anxiety. It creates a risk aversion for a lot of people that they don't want to have to worry about it, so they don't do it. And then the people in those states are missing out. So it's yeah, I mean, that's the way our Constitution is set up, in a way, for the federalism, for the states to be licensing or protecting the health and welfare of the residents in those states. But at the same time, if we can avoid having to worry about all those different 50 state laws and just instead have some national uniform outside of the government purview standard bearing body, that would be really, really helpful. And there are candidates out there, and this podcast, of course, is going to talk to them as we progress. But this has been very, very insightful, Debbie. So thank you very much, as an educator, as an advisor, as a longtime expert in the wellness field. I appreciate you sharing your perspective with my audience.
Thank you, Barbara. Thanks for the invite.
And if they want to learn more about what you do or sign up for one of your classes or the academy, how do they do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. You can find me on LinkedIn, Debbie Bellenger on LinkedIn. That's a great place. And or go to my website, which is super easy, www.debbiebellenger.com. First name, last name.com.
Well, I will have those links in the description for the podcast, so people will be able to go right to them if interested and learn more from you. So thanks again, Debbie.
You're welcome. So good to be here. Thanks, Barbara.